It's 1 o'clock, so I'll call the Facilities Committee meeting for Wednesday, September 14th, 2022 to order. There's no public comment period. Let me lead us in a prayer, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day, and we're thankful for the opportunity we have to serve the citizens of Glynn County. Grant us wisdom and understanding, Father, as we undertake the business of the Joint Water and Sewer Commission. We thank you for all our staff members and their families, and you just ask your blessings on them. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
The first item on the agenda is the minutes from the August 17th, 2022 Facilities Committee meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is contract award as needed electrical services. Mr. Burrows.
Yes, sir. We have consistent needs for electrical maintenance at all of our rotating equipment facilities at the wastewater plants, pump stations, and the production facilities. We have 2 or 3 staff members that are sufficiently skilled to perform basic electrical maintenance. However, some of the jobs that we're running into require a significant time commitment to tie up those 2 or 3 key staff members for a week or 2 at a time would limit our flexibility to perform other tasks. So the example of this, we're currently rehabbing a pump station on St. Simon's, pump station 2032 on the side of Frederica. We're running all new conduits and setting new electrical panels, pulling new feeders. So to do all that, we're having to tie up 2 or 3 of our more experienced staff members, and given the current shortfall in that division with these larger jobs for an extended period of time. So we went and requested a not-to-exceed quote from Jam Electric. Jam Electric is a local industrial electrician that we have worked with extensively in recent years. They've been subcontractors on multiple projects, and the current Dunbar Creek Design Build project, and they've also done work directly for us. For example, last year they did a influent VFD replacement job at Academy Creek outside of the scope of the original project. So they provided these budget numbers, and then there are hourly rates provided in the attached quote. It's $195 an hour for regular hours and $225 for after hours calls for doing this. So this would be just to award up to this amount in each of these items. So there's $10,000 for each of the 3 wastewater plants, which have separate budgets, $20,000 for systems pumping and maintenance, and $10,000 for water production, for a combined not to exceed of $60,000.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend the full commission authorize not to exceed budgets to JAM Electric Company, Inc. as needed labor only electrical services in the amount of $60,000.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions?
I do have one question. Is the rate that they quoted there, is that a reasonable rate, or is it
That is consistent with
value?
what they've charged us on other proposals they've completed with us. Yes, sir.
And were there any other companies that had expressed an interest?
We did not, I'll be honest, we didn't reach out to any other companies for this work. There are very few in the way of local industrial electricians. We've been very pleased with the work we've got out of JAM, so that's why we just went to them for the quote.
All right, thank you.
When they charge us something now, do they charge us a minimum 2 hours, like this quote
Yes.
says?
Minimum, which
Okay.
they charge us a minimum 2 hours, but typically if they show up on site, they're there for more than 2 hours. It's very seldom we're going to get them for something so small that they're only going to be there for 2 hours.
That's something you typically handle with staff.
Right. That's those
Right, I
basic
was
things
gonna
we'd
say,
handle with
yeah.
staff.
Sure.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is the contract award fiscal year 2023 long-term water quality monitoring. Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. According to our 3 discharge permits at each of the wastewater treatment plants that we have, we are required to maintain a watershed protection plan. And what that is essentially samples from the in-stream water sources that we discharge into, both upstream and downstream, and at the point of discharge, to determine if the streams are meeting in-stream water quality standards, and to make sure that anything we're discharging is not causing impairments to the water bodies. We have a long-standing relationship with a company called Integrated Science and Engineering that have been completing these plans for us. Essentially, they do the sampling analysis and produce annual reports that are submitted to EPD for each of these 3 watershed protection plans. They actually were performing services for Glynn County prior to the creation of joint water and sewer, so they've been doing it since at least 2006. So the request here is to to award this to them. Again, you see the cost there for the 3 wastewater plants. Academy Creek requires more frequent sampling due to the size of the discharge and for more parameters. And Dunbar and Southport are very close in price there. Compared to what we've paid in the past, the average for the last 3 years has been about $78,000. It's because last year's we had to do additional sampling for Academy Creek with the issuance of the new permit. So this gets us back to where we had been previously. So this is a budgeted amount in the Academy, Dunbar, and Southport individual budgets. This actually, the water quality sampling essentially is to make sure that the stormwater requirements that are in place are actually working as well. So this gives great data for not only us, but for the city and Glynn County for their stormwater discharge permits as well.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend the full commission approve the contract award to Integrated Science and Engineering for the fiscal year 2023 watershed protection plans in the amount of $72,526.
Second. I have
Motion second. Any questions?
perhaps. Andrew, for my better understanding of this, when I look at the locations where the contractor would do the sampling for us, I don't understand the science of the water movement all around. It seems like some of these are way upstream from Academy Creek, for example, and quite distance from Dunbar. And the other thing is, for these things that they're sampling, is it possible there could be other contributors, other parties that would be having some effluent that could potentially impact the sampling analysis?
Yes, sir. Two points there. One, yes, they are significantly upstream and may not even be the exact water bodies at which we discharge into. There may be upstream tributaries to larger water bodies that we discharge into. All these are approved plans and sampling locations through the EPD, so they've been approved for several years. I'm not 100% sure why these locations were selected. With that being said, they are typically locations where there happens to be a bridge that goes over the water body, so they can get down and actually get the sample. So a lot of that does come into play. But to your second question of are there other contributors that could be impacting the water quality in those areas, 100%. But we are the permit holder for the wastewater discharge facility in Glynn County.
Okay.
Those points were selected when the watershed protection plan was originally submitted to EPD.
And they have reviewed and approved that, yes, sir.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you. Next item is HVAC replacement Academy Creek Warehouse. Mr. Burrows?
Yes, sir. As part of our capital projects plans for this year, we budgeted $450,000 to do improvements to JWSC facilities. One of these improvements will be to the warehouse facilities at Academy Creek and the Harrington Warehouse, and also to this building. Due to the wide-ranging nature of the improvements that need to be made, we're going to try to do this through several smaller contracts. This first one here is actually to replace the air conditioning units at the warehouse at Academy Creek. If you're not familiar, that is a converted dissolved air flotation structure that was part of the solids handling process. It's very large, open air, or not open air, it does have a roof on it, but it's a 2-story building that is not separated into 2 stories. Large concrete bays, and during the summertime particularly, there's not adequate temperature control. In the wintertime, it does get cold, but the summertime, due to the heat and the humidity, it becomes quite unpleasant in that structure. So we went to 3 providers to install 2 5-ton units for that warehouse. The sizing is in line with the architectural design completed by our consultant, Golden Mills Kaywood, that was bid out as part of the Academy Creek rehab project. If you recall, Those building improvements were bid as an alternate for the whole building upgrades and were not awarded due to the cost being over $4 million at the time of bid. And so we got 3 bids. They're actually 3 separate companies that provided 3 different different manufacturers worth of equipment. The low bid was actually from Hall Heating and Air. I will say we'd actually be awarding 2 contracts here if we do it as structured. Hall Heating and Air will provide the equipment and the installation of the HVAC equipment, and then we'd be contracting with Charlton Electric for $5,200 for the electrical improvements necessary. So the total price would be $28,386. You'll notice the third quote on there, Certified Electric, that's one combined quote for the HVAC purchase, installation, and the electrical installation. We're using the Charlton Electric quote for the Hall Heating and Air and the AC guys quote to make sure we've got a apples to apples comparison.
Can I have a motion?
I move the Facilities Committee recommended a full commission approve a contract award to Hall Heating and Air Incorporated in the amount of $23,186 for HVAC installation at the Academy Creek Warehouse, and approve a contract award to Charlton Electric for electrical improvements necessary to facilitate HVAC installation in the amount of $5,200.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second. Any questions?
I will point out that the units that are being replaced are actually residential units, which is why they are not handling the necessary amount of air to hold those units. So there is air conditioning on the building, but they're struggling because they're just not sized appropriately.
Do we have any fans in there?
We do. We have large fans in there, and that does help keep the air moving. Doesn't do much to help knock the humidity out of the air, though.
I think not.
Now, when we were talking about maybe adding in revising the plans for that, we heard that at that time, the contractor said that the HVAC system was oversized.
Yes, sir.
Is this
This was
the
not the
appropriate
section.
size?
What they were talking about was for the other parts of the building, because that plan
Okay.
would be redoing the HVAC for both sides of the building and that upper floor. So this would be standalone from what they were. The warehouse improvements are standalone from what they were talking about, making the HVAC improvements for everything else.
Okay. So if we want to do those improvements sometime in the future, this would fit in with those?
Those would fit in. We'd still have to make additional HVAC improvements for the rest of the building, but these would still fit in
Okay.
the way they are designed.
Are these roof mounted?
No, these would be exterior mounted units,
Okay.
probably underneath the current, what do they call it, a portico share, the awning thing that goes out over there. He's gonna have to move his dump truck.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is infrastructure and easement dedications. Mr. Klein?
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Let's zoom in here. Okay, so we got 3 items on this agenda item here. First one is, these are dedications and infrastructure, easement dedications and infrastructure as well. First one was Avondale Phase 3, which is just a water dedication. Give you a location on that one. Avondale on the south end, exit 29 area, near Emmanuel Loop Road. It's actually a 3rd phase to Avondale subdivision. As you can see, as indicated, Glynn County's inputted the addresses here. So it's an extension of water main through here. We're going to bring on a good group of new customers with this development, and an extension to our water system in the South Mainland.
These would be water-only customers.
Water-only customers. We currently do not have wastewater service in that area. Next item is the Park at Village Creek, which is infrastructure, water and sewer, and a small easement dedication. That is St. Simon's Island, South Harrington area. The very end, just before you get to the boat ramp. Whoop. Last piece of developable property on the north side of South Harrington at the end. It is aptly named Park at Village Creek. So there's also attachments in there, gives you a little more detail for the record drawing so you can see the infrastructure as well. The little easement that's included with this one is right as soon as you turn into the development. There's a tiny little segment of gravity sewer that had to be included in there for alignment reasons. And then the third item is ARCO, utility easements. I'll talk a little bit more in depth on this one. ARCO, this ties in with our ARCO project, which is water and sewer extensions in that neighborhood. And this is around the Ogg Avenue area, west of, kind of in the area of Townsend on the western side of the railroad tracks at parallel Whitlock Street, near Brunswick Villa. And what this does, these easements, once the project began, we were approached by one of the property owners out there that owns a number of parcels in this that block, and we were able to work with them to obtain some easements, which are now going to allow us to redesign the gravity sewer installation for the ARCO project, move it outside of the public right-of-way and the roadway. So that's going to eliminate some roadway construction and repairs from the project, and we'll realize some savings from those units out of the project. And the property owner worked with two other property owners. Mr. Bruce Garrett worked with two other property owners to obtain the easements from them as well. So it's, I think it's all within the property. And what the benefit to them is now these homes are currently on septic systems with the easements in the backyards are running, sharing the property line, common property line in the back. It makes it easier for them to tie on as well. So it benefits the property owners that are rejuvenating that area downtown, and benefits the Water and Sewer Commission as well by allowing us to move outside of the paved areas and avoid those roadway repairs. Happy to answer any other questions if there's anything in particular.
I'll offer the motion. I'll move that the Facilities Committee forward these projects with associated dedications and easements to the full commission for approval and acceptance.
I'll second the motion.
Are there any questions? On the one in ARCO, is this it's gonna be individual easements or just one easement?
Due to the
One easement that crosses multiple properties, so it'd be individual easements because of the splitting of the property.
the different property owners that are in there, correct. So it's,
We don't have to have a separate easement for each individual property owner?
We do, that's what, there's 3 of them in there. That's what that is for.
correct.
It's one corridor with 3 separate easements that
So
are,
we're only getting three easements from 3 houses. They're houses there, right?
Yes, your
yes,
house.
that's correct.
Yeah.
I think some of these actually may be vacant lots, but
Scroll down here to the very end. Yeah, they all refer to the same exhibit, which is here. You'll see the individual dedication documents for exhibits refer to, there's A1, A2, B, C1, and C2. So those are the, but they're somewhat contiguous, many of them are, but four different, actually 5, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different
but only 3 different property owners.
actual easements, 3 property owners, correct.
The first one there on utility easement B, is there a house on that location?
Utility easement B, they're on the, in this area here?
Yeah, that funky looking,
That corner lot.
the corner lot, because
Here?
Yep.
There is a structure there. I don't know if it's a residence or not, but there is a structure there. It looks more like utility type.
who laid out this easement for us?
Our engineer of record, Thomas and Hutton, used their in-house surveying crews.
I question why on that particular easement, why we're taking so much property. Like the other one's 15, what's the width of A2 and A1?
So A2 and A1. 15, L1.
And what's the width of C1?
20 feet.
Yep.
Is C1 for water or for sewer?
These are all for sewer, correct?
These are all for sewer, that's correct, yeah. 20 foot, the smaller width ones are 20, let's see, L1 is 20 foot, L5 is 10 foot.
L5.
That's
Yep.
down,
Yeah, these,
excuse me for pointing, but it's
Yeah.
on the street.
yeah, these guys that run parallel to the street or adjacent to the street. And then that's 20 foot between the backyards.
I just, and A1 is how wide?
20 feet.
L1?
A1.
A1.
A1's the top one.
I don't understand how we put the sewer line in 20 foot in a backyard like that.
20 foot's our standard.
For gravity sewer, that's our standard.
That's permanent easement, though.
Permanent easement, yes.
Any
Deeded easement.
construction easement on these?
No, sir, this is it right here, deeded.
Has the engineer talked with the contractor to make sure he can do this?
Absolutely. We've walked the site back there, talked to the property owners. Contractor's fully on board with this. It makes their job a little easier. There's a little clearing, extra clearing involved, a few small trees, trimming, that kind of thing.
Well, what about utility easement B? Why is it such a odd shape?
That's the one
Utility easement B,
to the upper right.
yeah. It's to avoid existing structures that are out there. I can pull a Google Street View if that helps.
Yeah, it looks,
We'd like-
looks
I'd like
like
to
they
see the
just,
street view.
on utility easement B, call it the western, yeah, the western side of the easement, looks like it's just a straight line, a matter of convenience, across 3 lots, instead of doing perpendicular to those lot lines. But it's 20 feet plus in a few places.
I just hate for us to be taking that much property from those property owners, especially on that one lot, if we don't need it.
Yeah.
Can you show us the layout of the sewer line in there too?
So this is looking back, this is the B, well, can't see it now. See if I can get it back up here.
Have we talked with all of the property owners?
They all agree by way of endorsing the dedication, yes.
Yeah, all these are rental, just about all these are rental property, under 3 or 4 owners.
There we go. So facing this B, the odd shaped one, over to the street, this is kind of that odd shape that runs back through there. Existing trees, structures, that type of thing.
When we do utility easements, we don't ever show in the background where the sewer line is or the water line, so we can see where,
Well, there is no existing,
I know, but there's a proposed,
right, the redesign hasn't been done yet, has it?
but there's a proposed sewer line,
Proposed, right,
so we
Right.
know where it is, otherwise how would they draw up the easement?
correct, yeah,
I just wonder why it's so funky. I mean, it's,
mhm.
why is it not just 20 foot and just angle back? I mean, you're gonna have to have a manhole in there someplace anyway.
So C1 is,
So that's actually a vacant lot right there?
chord length.
Chairman, I think it is, in the photograph there, I believe it's the house in view. And the house is in close proximity to the front lot line or near the street. And where that opening in the fence is the one point of the easement. And then it, that wide section of the easements, I think it's described here at about 45 feet. So that would go from that opening in the fence back toward the right in the photograph. Kind of cover that trapezoidal shape in that backyard.
Yeah, I understand where it is, but I just wonder why it's there. I mean, why we're requesting that much easement. Who did this easement for us? Engineer?
The engineer of record did. They utilized their in-house surveying team to do this, along with the engineer of record for the ARCO project.
There's a fair amount of tree cover in that backyard. I don't know the size of the trees and if they're, you know, an adjacent lot overhanging, but is it or was that a factor in their determination as to the shape of the easement?
Try to avoid taking out the large trees in the back, yes.
Well, I mean, that's fine, but then they're on our easement. Why don't we just have a line going through there and let the property owner own both sides of the easement then? That being the case.
Mhm.
I mean, I just don't know why we're taking that much space right there.
You feel like this is something needs to be changed then, or?
Yeah.
Even though the property owners have signed off on it?
I mean, I just wonder why we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can tell me why we're doing it, why we're getting more easement than we need in a residential area that one time in the future, somebody might do something to that house. I mean, when sewer's put in this area, I mean, and it's rental property probably.
I know the shape of the lots are kind of odd on the top part of the easement there. I assume that's the property line along there? Is that the
The
property
back,
line?
yes, this is the back. This is the property line.
Along there, yeah.
Yes, sir.
But, so then you're thinking that it should just go along right, 20 feet wide from the
Yeah,
property
and
line?
if the sewer has to go in the middle of the upper end and just straight back, then the easement it wouldn't go all the way to the property line.
Mhm.
I think it might
We-
create,
We're getting an easement on property we don't need, is what I'm saying.
I understand, Commissioner. I think it would create some odd-shaped leftover balanced property if, I think what they did is they just,
Well, the property, the easement is a part of the property. So we're just taking easement that we really don't need. And I don't think we ought to get into doing that. Now, if there's a future need for it, then that's fine.
I mean, we could certainly go back to the property owners and readdress this, but, I mean, personally, the property owners have agreed to this and they're fine with the layout.
yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
ask, what impact does this have on them after the,
They can't build, there's a setback.
Permanent structures.
Can't build permanent structures in the easement, and there's a setback from the easement that's required.
fence? Can they put a fence? Or
Not
they
without
can't put a fence?
Not without approval from us.
Okay, so they can't fence off the easement
Right.
part, okay.
They could still fence the property line.
Right.
Still fence the property line.
Right,
But by definition, they would not be able to run a fence through the occupied permanent structure.
right, okay.
Easement permanent structure.
Right.
The staff is certainly, will do whatever leadership decides. I will add that time is kind of the essence on this, because we do have a contractor that is behind, well, the project is well behind on the contract time, and we were hoping to have this settled for them so they can go proceed with the gravity installation. So it would take some time, especially right now, having surveyors redraw, resurvey, go back to the property owners. I will also add this, Mr. Bruce Garrett has worked with us pretty quickly because he's in the process of some property sales and whatnot, so there are some hands that will change. The ownership is likely to change. We tried to get this in before the commission as soon as we could. So, throwing that out there, but as I said,
So we're strapping the future owner by doing this. We're getting it done by the present owner who's gonna sell the property.
I don't think we know which one of the properties he's selling right now.
yeah, I'm not aware of
I
that.
mean,
He
if the
just,
line's going straight, I just don't understand why it's not a 20-foot easement straight through there.
I think the tree is right. And they're avoiding the tree pretty much. They could have, popped another line straight here for a.
Yeah, that's what I say, just have a consistent easement.
Certainly one way to do it.
I'm sure the property owner wouldn't mind that being changed. I don't think it's gonna slow down anything.
To me, the fewer lines on the
I just
paper, the
don't
easier.
want us to get into, just because somebody told us that's what we need. We don't really need it to
Certainly.
maintain the line or anything. Well, any other questions? We got a motion. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next item is change order number 1, Arco Water and Sewer Improvements.
Yes, sir. Staff would like to request this be deferred to the next scheduled facilities meeting. Still having a bit of back and forth between the contractor and the engineer on this, and so rather than creating a bigger issue by having to fix a change order that they're having some discussion on, we recommend sending this to the next meeting.
Can I have a motion?
I'll offer the motion that we defer item 6 until the next scheduled facilities committee meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. We'll move to the discussion part of the agenda. Water production report, Mr. Burrs.
Yes, sir. Starting on the mainland, one thing I will point out is we did some extensive work at the Goodyear Park well over the summer months, and so that work was completed, I believe, the last week of August, and that well was brought back online, so you see the slight increase in the usage there where it had been the previous few months. So that well is back online and working very effectively with the improvements that we made. And as a result of that, you see the Howard Coffin well reduced almost the same amount that the Goodyear well increased. Those two wells handle the bulk of downtown Brunswick, so they run in tandem most of the time. So having both of them online alleviates the pressure from one of the other ones. Brunswick Villa, very consistent with where it has been. Fledsey well, we still have seen a reduction in the Fledsey well usage ever since we've tied in the Glencoe and Canal water main loops. We are going out and confirming valve position on a back road of Fledsey called Memorial Drive. It's a bit of a quandary why the Fledsey well use didn't increase when we tied that in. The fact that it went down has still got us quite puzzled. So the suspicion is that we have a valve closed that we are unaware of, and we are having to get back there. Unfortunately, that portion of Fledsey has been slightly damp the last few weeks. So
I think so.
having to get back in there has been a challenge. Everything else is running mostly in line with where we would expect it to be running for the month. Very consistent from where we were last month. Last month at 5.06, this month at 5.04 million gallons a day. Taste and odor complaints, we had 3 for the month, and I don't recall which system they were all on right off the top of my head, but we had 2 this month of the complaints that were because of issues with their water softener. Sometimes the water softener fails and it starts sucking up stuff into the water lines, and then you get dirty water as a result of that. And then we had 1 in a multi-story building that had some issues with dirty water on the top floor, but no issues on the bottom floor, so the suspicion is something internal plumbing related at that point. So,
What's the average pressure in our water system?
set points are between 55 and 60 PSI.
And do we recommend people have water softeners?
No, sir.
Can I ask a question? When as a customer, how does that process go with the complaints, making a complaint about
They
it?
would do one of 2 things. They typically would call our call center, brings into our customer service area, and either the call center or the customer service reps, whoever happens to be on the phone queue at that time, would take the call, and then we would reach out to our water production individuals and have them reach back out to the customer. The other things that happens is they'll see us out in the community and at checking a well site or something, and they'll pull up at the well site and get out and talk to us at that
Flag
point.
someone down, okay.
So
All right.
typically it's through the call center, but we do have some in-person complaints that are made out in the field.
So the response time is very good.
Very, very good. Donnie Bankston is our water production superintendent, and he's very quick to respond to these and make sure we get the information they need, and pull samples if necessary to confirm. We're always going to pull chlorine residuals just to make sure we don't have any issues out in the area.
Right.
On our graph for the Brunswick District C, water level is a little lower these last couple of months than they had been this time last year, but it has been quite wet outside, so my belief is it's probably outdoor water use that has went down in these last couple of months.
I think so.
On St. Simons, very consistent water usage month to month out on St. Simons. Slight reduction in the Mallory well, but that may just be due to less tourists in town over the August, once school started back. But 3.07, right at 3.1 million gallons a day for water use on St. Simon, which, if you'll look, that has increased from where we were last year slightly. So some of that, of course, is residential growth, and some of that it is we have seen quite a lot of new irrigation customers on St. Simons in the past couple of years. So being able to serve those customers very effectively right now. And then South Mainland, Fancy Bluff and Brookman almost run the exact same amount, which is what we like to see. That means we've got the system balanced out pretty well there. So about 300,000 gallons a day being produced down there at the South Mainland, and fixing to make a slight change in the way we're operating the system down there. We have installed a transducer at a site at the south end of the county near the Clearwater subdivision, and we will be operating the Fancy Bluff tank or well site off of that transducer rather than operating it off the elevated storage tank at Brookman. Because currently, unfortunately, what happens when the tank at Brookman calls to be filled, will Brookman and Fancy Bluff turn on? Brookman's directly underneath the tank, Fancy Bluff's pumping from miles away, so it short circuits a lot. So we're trying to eliminate some of those short circuiting on the motors. But highly consistent usage down at the South Mainland.
What percent of the St. Simons has the new meters in?
We have got about 15,000 meters installed. I'd say, what, a third of St. Simons has been done? Yes, sir. Most of the North Mainland and almost all of the South Mainland has been completed. So what is remaining is the old city district and St. Simons, essentially. And the bulk of that would be the central part of St. Simons that still has to be done for the island.
Do we have more irrigation customers on St. Simons?
Yes.
Percentage?
Yes, sir. Getting quite a few irrigation customers in the North Mainland as well with the new builds that are going in. Of course, new builds typically means new sod, and so they like to irrigate that so they don't waste their investment.
Do we ever track water usage on St. Simons with the Dunbar Creek wastewater flows?
I mean, we compare it, yes, sir. Typically, the water usage is lower than the wastewater flows because we have the Sea Island discharge coming in and plus I&I.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right, moving on, excuse me. Moving on to the wastewater plant. A little bit drier for the month of August than it had been in July, and of course, it came back with a vengeance last week in September. So expect the September numbers to show quite higher than this. 6.5 million gallons a day leaving the Academy Creek facility there, just shy of 50% of the flow. 50% would be about 6.75, so that gives you a good window there. Influent concentrations bounce back a little bit with the lower rainfall totals there. Plant doing pretty effectively. Still having to make some slight process tweaks there, but still going along well. 97% removal of BOD and 98% removal of TSS. A little bit less sludge to the landfill for the month, which is always good. Less sludge is less cost at the landfill, but also means that our digesters are doing a better job of actually removing the solids. So always good to see that in our system there. All in all, our flows are fairly consistent where they've been for the previous year. A little fluctuation here or there, but mostly in line with where we have been in the recent past. Dunbar Creek flow for the month, 3.1 million gallons, which is down quite a lot percentage-wise from where we were in the month of July with all the rain we got in July. A little wetter on St. Simons for the month, or at least from the rain gauge on St. Simons for the month than they were on the rain gauge on the mainland. But plant operated very consistently month to month over there. Still going through the ongoing project, some slight improvements made on the project in the past month, so still operating with one basin and handling it very well. 98% removal of BOD and TSS for the month there at Dunbar Creek. And you'll actually notice we've ran pretty consistently. If you recall, the blue line there, the flow, the first quarter of the year, we had some recalibrated that meter and it dropped it back down. So have not seen a tremendous increase in flow rates on St. Simons for the year compared to what we had been, starting to stabilize pretty well. So the plant being handled very effectively by our staff. And then at Southport, just shy of 400,000 gallons a day being treated there. Per the comment about Dunbar, if you think about it, Southport, we were saying it's about 300,000 gallons a day produced in water. So there's 400,000 gallons going into the plant. That is not from significant I&I. That is from the port, because they have their own wells and water system on the port, but we take their sewer. So that's not there is some I&I locations down there, but typically that's always going to be higher just because of the discharge from the port, which is a sewer-only discharge. But the plant rocking along quite well. Most things for the month actually had a lower concentration than they'd been previously. So 97% BOD, nearly 98% TSS removal at the facility down there. And given the low flows, very little sludge leaving that facility as well. Running a little lower than we had been at that facility if you look at the graphs, but nothing significant. Plant operates about the same every month regardless of what gets sent to it. So all in all, staff doing a nice job at our wastewater facilities.
Good report. Next item is the capital project report, Mr. Klein and Mr. Burrs.
Okay, we're going to start today with the wastewater plant project at Academy Creek. We are on to punch list items and the change order we did last time with the paving and a few items. On the change order that we did last time, they have installed the conduits and they have mobilized today to begin the repaving process. Still working through some punch list items, and they also, one of the punch list items was starting up the sludge offloading facility. The vendor was supposed to be here today to perform startup on that equipment today. I have not got an update on how that has went, but that was scheduled for today.
Show us where the building is that we're putting in the HVAC.
Zoom in, Todd.
Aerial.
Concrete building.
That concrete building in the center there, where his cursor is. Wait, go back. Kirk's building there. Yeah, right there. So, the back half of that building.
And
That would be
that's the 2 5-ton units is for the top floor of that? Or the
bottom floor of that. It's a good shot that Jason got with the drone on this.
I was gonna say, that is a really impressive looking.
Postcard, then.
Yeah.
So you see our contractors working away there on a few of the punch list items. Mostly our electrical contractors. Still waiting on the remanufacturing of the odor control covers to correct the odor control cover issue in the influent, and then doing some of the tedious punch list work there on the bottom right. Dave, one of the foremen for Ruby Collins, they have since demobilized the vast majority of their crew and moved up to somewhere in the Savannah area to complete projects. So Dave has been essentially the only member of the Ruby Collins crew there, and he's doing a lot of very tedious items right now.
Got the obligatory Monster energy right there.
Yes, Dave probably goes through 6 of those a day. So, not saying it's great for his health, but he seems to enjoy them.
All right, very good. Okay, talk about ARCO. Area water and sewer extension is around about 15% complete. They are currently installing gravity sewer with that project.
Can you
They-
show us on the, where those are, where the lines have been installed?
Certainly.
Have they done any water work, or just
Waterwork they're correct. They're about halfway done with the waterwork as designed. Let's see, so this
and
is
what's the deepest sewer we're gonna be putting in?
Main
15
Street,
feet,
about 15 feet.
13, 15 feet, something like that's the deepest sewer out there.
Are they hitting groundwater?
Very much so.
Are they-
In Glynn
on-
County?
On this picture, they're not hitting groundwater, are they?
They are, and I'm glad you asked that because I wanted to point this out. You see the rock in the trench, and you can't maybe see here, but they do have their mud hog in there, keeping the hole dry. But as long as they keep it dry enough with rock, it's considered
So they're not having to de-water with,
not by way of well points.
yeah.
Not by way of well points. They're able to keep up with the mud hog.
Because this is pretty deep right here. This is 12 foot deep, isn't it? 8
One
foot n-
10 or
n-
12, yeah.
one trench box, so yes, they're sort of 10 or 12 foot deep. So.
It's good to see them following proper trench safety protocols.
It is. It is.
Now, the engineer's doing inspection on this.
The engineer is doing at least one visit weekly, and yes, overseeing it, and we have bi-weekly meetings out there as well. Contractor, engineer, and joint water staff. Joint water staff is keeping an eye on things as well. As,
So how often do we have somebody out there?
every day, we do at least drive-by every day.
Just a drive-by, nobody standing out there watching?
By drive-by, I mean spend some time out there, yes.
We'll hop out, talk to the contractor, see what's going on. Are we standing there for 4 hours? No.
Yeah, not unless there's an issue. Would we spend an inordinate amount of time out there? Okay. Galvanized replacements, this is a operation-driven project in-house. Certain amount of money is allotted every fiscal year for our operations folks and distribution to do this work.
Per our last meeting, we approved the as-needed horizontal directional drilling services for water line installs, and we have cut them loose on, I think, 1.5 miles of pipe already that they haven't got it finished, of course, but that they are responsible for completing. That's in the St. Clair area of St. Simons, as well as, I forget the neighborhood name, Menendez Street and everything over there off of Frederica. So, quite a lot of galvanized pipe going to come out of the ground there. I actually have a friend that lives in one of those neighborhoods and wanted to know what all the paint on the ground was. So, had to call all the locates.
There we go. A lot of beautiful PPE being utilized in these pictures. Okay, meter replacements.
Well, there's a couple of folks not wearing hard hats.
Let's see, did we catch some people in here?
Yes, we do.
Back here in the back?
Yeah.
Here? Sure Mr. Burrows will address that. All right, meter replacement project. A couple pictures here. Glad to run through here, and you can see here a lot of times they're conversing with the customers, explaining what's going on. A lot of times the meter installs are in a difficult location. This one in some concrete here. I'm sure almost always the meter boxes are completely clean, no dirt in there. Get the wrenches in there. No water. Occasionally, they may have to suck
No
some water.
reptiles.
Yep, no reptiles, spiders, hornets. Right. Always have interested customers asking about it, and I think the team is glad to speak with them. Large meter here. That's Tony Brada, M&E Meter Tech there. 2-inch meter for Brunswick Country Club that's being installed. It's tedious, and it's amazing how many they get done, in my opinion. Their rate of completion here. So M&E is rocking on, Miss Roberts, if you have anything to add?
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay.
Now, how do we tie that to our billing software?
How do we tie that to the software?
And who is our billing software with?
Harris.
Billing software is Harris Company. It's called Enterprise. And then we have a customer information system, suite of that.
So E&E downloads all the information and sends it over to our billing staff, who then uploads it all into the system. So there is a lot of behind-the-scenes work to make sure this all connects properly. That's also why they skip around a little bit, because it depends on what part of the month on the billing cycle it is, when they're going to actually replace it and everything like that, so.
So they enter that information daily to us. Is that
They-
right?
At this point, it's twice a week, Monday and Thursday we get downloads.
But the new meters have zero when they start?
Yes.
The
The
new
meters
meter
are on
has
zero
zero
when
when
they
they start.
Well, they are, with the exception of the water that's used during the installation, because we do flush
Right.
once the installation is complete. So there may be 15, 20 gallons associated with the flushing at the completion of the installation.
But we're making sure we're charging for the correct amount of water used.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Dunbar Creek Water Pollution Control Facility.
Yeah, if you recall, at our last meeting, we talked about how a pipe collapse that was originally not portion of the project. So that top picture there is the structures that were connected by the piece of pipe that collapsed. So that it flows into the larger box there on the flows into the smaller box on the left, and then flows from there to two larger boxes, one of them which is to the south of the picture that you can't see here. They had to double stack trench boxes in there because I believe it was about 17 or 18 feet deep they had to do there. And that on the bottom is what they pulled out of the ground. So needless to say, it was time to replace that piece of pipe. That is what ductile iron pipe looks like when the H2S has decided to enact its toll. Now, I will say, the pipe looks worse on the ground than it does in the hole, because once they start snatching it out of the ground, it does get damaged in the process a little bit. So I don't want anybody thinking there was that large of a hole in the pipe, but there was a hole in the top of the pipe that was actually siphoning dirt into the line. So that has since been replaced. The tank painting project over there has been completed. They have filled the tank up with water from the clarifiers. Rather than running potable water in there, we just ran a pump from the clarifier effluent and filled it up. Haven't noticed any leaks yet. We thought we had a leak, but then we figured out somebody forgot to shut the drain on it. So self-induced leak, but that has since been corrected, and the tank seems to be holding well. And right now, we're still going through submittal reviews and trying to get some of the larger pieces of equipment sent to us. Hopefully, the next thing we'll get will be the diffusers to put into the tank that is currently not in use. We would like not to have to put the old diffusers back in there, fill it up, then drain it back down, clean it back out, replace the diffusers. But depending on storm events, we may have to do that if we are unfortunate this year. So moving through all of that well, and we're going to be working on this project over into mid-summer, maybe even to the fall, depending on delivery timelines on equipment at that facility. Even PVC diffusers, they're talking about January, February timeframe to get them here.
Wow.
Okay, so that concludes the pictures of what's physically going on in the field with construction.
Per request from our commissioners, we're going to talk about some of the status of the design projects this month that we haven't maybe hit on quite as much last couple of months.
So I'm grabbing the paper copy to read some of that stuff. So what's going on engineering design wise? So the spreadsheet is a kind of a master list of all of our projects we got funded, that we have funded, with the different things that are going on with them. You can look over and see how much money's been spent and whatnot with the column headings. Fairly self-explanatory, but glad to answer any questions. And then the status column all the way to the right will give you a little bit of detail on each one of these guys. So every other Friday, typically every other Friday, we have a capital huddle, Mr. Burrows calls it, where we all get together via Teams, web meeting, to give updates and whatnot on this. And that's basically what the summary of the statuses are on the end. So, I guess we just hit on some things that are fixing to go out for bid. Well, one of the big ones coming up is 2002 force main replacements in-house.
We'll do that in-house. That's going to hopefully kick off, still working with Glynn County on right-of-way permitting. We're going to install a force main in the travel lane of Arnold Road, hopefully beginning the week following Georgia-Florida weekend. Obviously, we do not want to be in there during the Georgia-Florida weekend.
No.
So we are planning that job out internally. We have design drawings. We bid that out. Cost came back higher than anticipated, so we think we can install the sections that are open cut ourselves. But staff is going through a very detailed plan to make sure that's going to go very effectively. We'll essentially close down short sections of the road to work and cover every night and open the road back up, and then shut down short sections the next night and do it that way, other than getting it paved, at which point they'll shut down the whole road to pave the sections while they're in there doing it. So again, hopefully the Monday following Georgia-Florida weekend, we're going to mobilize on that one.
Which lane?
It would be the
North lane.
north lane will be closed. And there are some businesses that will have to accommodate, one of which, obviously, there's some restaurants on the far eastern side of Arnold Road there. So we will be working with that restaurant to make sure we're in there early in the morning before their business is open for the public.
Okay. A couple of these are recognized we've already talked about, like ARCO, jumping down to 2102. Canal Road Water Production Facility. It's currently in 60% design submittal with our engineer of record, Thomas and Hutton, and kicking comments back to them on that. North Mainland Water Loops. We're essentially getting very close to advertising that one, but we are going through permitting with Glynn County and EPD right now. Final permitting on that one. Let's see. Pump Station 4002, you'll see that one was coupled with 4001, and then also 3101 on the South Mainland. That is a 3-pump station rehab design with Kimley Horn, our engineer of record right now, and we're getting very close. We just did final 90% spec review, and we have a meeting with them actually at 3 o'clock here in just a bit to wrap that project up for advertisement. We have Pump Station 4044, which is the Prime South Bank parcel that we acquired here recently. We're in the process of closing with them, and that's out by the mall. That project is essentially 90%, getting very close to advertising that project as well for construction. Jump down here, elevated storage tanks, Glen Place Mall and Oglethorpe site. That is a tank rehab project and advertised September 1st. We got a pre-bid coming up, and we expect to open bids first week of October coming up. We try to time that with the winter months to take advantage of our northern contractors that have availability in the wintertime. Okay. 2056 pumps and force main improvements. That's the scope of work right now is currently being compiled in-house by staff. We're going to put that out for engineering RFP. Further, as listed on master plan for rehab 2033 and 2034 pump stations. Also looking for a little feedback from operations on the scope of work.
We intend on doing that in-house on the engineering, though.
Engineering, correct.
For 33 and 34.
Yeah, we're doing the engineering. That's going to essentially just go out for construction bid, correct? We're handling the, thank you for pointing that out.
We've worked with an electrical engineer to get a standard set of electrical drawings, which is the bulk of what those projects are. So doing the design for the pumps and some discharge improvements with the valving and things, we can do that in-house and just use that standard set of electrical drawings for those 2 pump stations and get that out without having to go out for a full engineering design from a consultant.
Where is 2033 and 34?
2033 is by the fire station on Lawrence Road, and 2034 is back on the north end. Is that in Pikes Bluff, or is that in?
Stillwater.
Stillwater, okay. Yeah, I know it's back in there on the north end.
Thank you.
33 is the one you drive by right there by the fire stations. It's just off the road.
Yeah. Okay. We've got the pump station 3114 force main reroute. We're looking at that, but we're also, I'm mentioning this one because we're working with our Kimley Horn folks as they're doing the design for the rehab of 3101, which manifolds currently with that station. part of this project is divesting these two from each other, and going straight to the headworks of 3114, so. Land, there's a couple other things, at Ocean Boulevard, we're reviewing what information we have in hand for that. It will require,
We had a design completed 10-plus years ago,
yes,
which I was not here 10 years ago, but in the 5 years I've been here, Ocean Boulevard has changed a little bit. So we're going to have to get that redrawn based off of the above-ground assets that have changed.
Where along Ocean will that be?
Essentially from the roundabout at East Beach to tie into the Village Phase 1 improvements that was done pre-COVID.
Yeah, that's almost 100%.
Pretty much all of Ocean, yes, sir.
yes, sir.
With that being said, it will absolutely help us utilize the improvements made in the Village Phase 1.
It will.
There's an old cast iron line in there that it's time to go.
Last one I'll mention here, that I'll mention, and Ms. Burrs may want to mention the facilities and talk a little more about it. Brunswick-Ville area and engineering RFP was advertised September 2nd. So we're looking at, again, another bid opening of October, first week in October. So we got a lot of stuff advertised and about to be advertised. We're going to get in a cycle where we got a lot of work out there again.
So at the next meeting, expect a recommendation for an engineering award for the Brunswick-Ville area and for award of the construction contract for the tank rehabs. Both of those at the next meeting, assuming they come in at a reasonable amount. And we shall go from there. In the facilities improvement, we talked about the HVACs improvements we're doing at Academy Creek. We've also ordered a new roll-up door for the warehouse at Harrington, and we're working, actually working with the contractor that's working on the old CVS building, the new Board of Elections, to see who they're going to sub their paint work to, and maybe incorporate getting the entire building painted at one time instead of them painting and then us coming back and painting 3 months behind the fact or something like that. And then assuming that gets done, then we may be looking at, if you've ever been in our back parking lot in a rain event, you need waiters. So we may be, we're going to look at doing some drainage improvements in our back parking lot so that we can get rid of our makeshift bridge we have out there.
And I called Glynn County survey team out there day before yesterday and conned them into picking up a few more points for us.
There you
so
go.
that we can grade inlets and stuff like that, so we can do an in-house design to help dry our back parking lot up a little quicker. And that's the summary spreadsheet or master spreadsheet there. And I'm glad to answer any other questions. Do have the Gantt chart, best estimate for our projects, timeline, and then the earned value analysis. Spreadsheet as
I
well.
will mention, I brought it up at the last meeting. I have submitted 4 additional grant applications to the ARPA program through the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget for this round of grants was for drinking water improvements due to population increase. So I submitted 4 separate projects for that. 3 of them in the North Mainland, given the growth that has occurred in the North Mainland district, and then 1 down at the South Mainland area. So I don't know the official timeline of when they shall make those determinations, but I have submitted those projects for their consideration.
How much match did we say we were gonna be putting in on those?
50%
50%?
on all of them. Yes, sir.
And at Academy, will we be hauling some sludge over there this next month to see
The
how
hope
new
would be
hopper works?
starting maybe next week. We don't want to necessarily haul sludge over there currently with the paving project underway, but if
Right.
the paving is completed by Friday as anticipated, hopefully we'll be hauling sludge from Dunbar next week to try out the new offloading facility.
And if that's working right, are we gonna do that in both plants?
Yes, if, assuming that the startup goes well and everything's functioning appropriately, all the sludge from both outlying facilities will be brought there and dried before it's taken to the landfill. That takes it from about, if you're not used to sludge, it's gonna sound like it's bad. Takes it from about 15 to 18% solids. That sounds like it's an awful lot of water, and it is, but that's by weight. So it actually is not, it's not liquid when it comes in. So it takes it from about 15 to 18% to 95+% solids once it goes through the dryer. And since we're paying to dispose of this by weight, I would prefer not to pay to get rid of water. So building would be made of good use if we could haul the sludge from the other two facilities to get that there. And our landfilling partner much prefers the stuff that's went through the dryer.
Once we see that's working well, we might want to consider thinking about a backup dryer.
Absolutely. 'Cause if the dryer does go down, it's not as big of a concern for Dunbar and Southport just because of the volumes, but when the dryer goes down at Academy Creek, for the amount of sludge we produce there, you notice it in the monthly bills very quickly. It'll go from $15,000 to $45,000 for the month to get rid of it
Tipping fees.
on the tipping fees if it's not dried. So it quickly ratchets up when you're hauling water away. Also have to make more trips because it takes up more space because it's not dried.
Any other questions or comments? Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Adjourn, thank you.